Some compromise in Madison this week over a bill aimed at tackling reckless driving and carjacking. And a vote expected this week on new plans for shared revenue between the state and local municipalities. That's what CBS 58's Emily Fannin and WisPolitics' J.R. Ross discuss on Capital Connection.
Let's first start out with the new bills that were signed into law by Governor Tony Evers this week that actually directly deal with Milwaukee. And I'm talking about reckless driving and a rise in carjacking. So both of those incidents, if caught for a first offense or a second offense, fines would almost double in some instances. And this has been an issue that the city has also taken upon themselves to try to tackle and pass their own city ordinances as well. So bigger picture here, it's one step, it was bipartisan, and we saw, lawmakers on both sides of the aisle at the bill signing.
So hope springs eternal, Emily, about the Capitol.
Yes.
Things can get done. These are not huge things, but it can lay a foundation for maybe more things getting done down the road.
Right, and we are seeing more bipartisan bills being introduced this year. All right, let's also talk about the UW system and some changes coming with new hires. We're talking about the diversity, equity, inclusion statements that typically new employees have to sign to commit themselves before working at the UW system. Well, the UW system president, Rothman, announced on Thursday that they will no longer ask employees to sign those documents. And there's kind of a bigger picture here, JR, which is why we want to talk about this, is because this comes after Assembly Speaker Robin Vos threatened to cut funding for the UW system. And there's a bigger picture here that it's not only Wisconsin Republicans targeting DEI, it's also on the national level of this big effort working to close campus diversity offices, which can almost be a theme that we start seeing in 2024 with some presidential candidates.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Republican base nationally, you're seeing it become less college educated, more populist, also more anti-woke. That's like the big term with presidential contenders, elected officials. So you see I don't want to say resentment necessarily of higher education, but it's an easy target for them to say, look, why are they doing this stuff? Why are they quote unquote indoctrinating our kids and sending back these woke liberals that we sent off to college? So there's that going on nationally. In Wisconsin, we at WisPolitics did a story about the number of positions that fall in the DEI header in the system. It's about $14 million. Now, that's a mix of state and federal money. And the lawmakers can't just say, I'm going to cut that position or that position. They have position authority at the system at UW Madison that they can kind of control where their jobs are. But what lawmakers can do is whack the university funding-wise. So joint finance is still meeting, going through the budget process. We're expecting some kind of cut to UW. Even though we have this massive surplus, even though we've had a number of good budgets in a row, UW has really kind of been treading water for a long time. And there's this kind of growing sense of there is going to be a whack at them. Now, part of it is also political. There is this kind of sense from Republicans that there are a lot of college kids who turn out to vote. They're largely Democratic. They're feeling like that's not good for them. So I don't know that's driving it, but there's also not helping the system, the idea of all these college kids turning out and voting in wars where it's 85% Janet Pro Se, which in the Supreme Court race this past spring, going, we don't like that kind of thing.
Right, and it's almost also a move by Rothman to try to play nice with Republicans, because as you mentioned, it's been a challenge for any UW system president to get along with top Republicans here in this building. It's always been a tug and pull approach, and with joint finance coming up, he's hoping that, hey, I've done this, maybe don't slash my funding as much, but we always do see some type of cuts. And his reasoning when he testified before lawmakers of making this decision is, he said, even though this is pretty common at most universities to sign a DEI statements, he said he made the decision to remove the politics out of the hiring process. So we'll see if it makes any difference.
If this was to placate Republicans, I don't know it's going to work from the calls I've made so far. So yeah, it could be a rough budget for UW before it's all said and done.
And looking ahead is going to be maybe some late nights next week at the state capitol as the assembly is in, and we have found out they're going to vote on the massive multi-million-dollar shared revenue plan that would give more aid to municipalities, but also a series of strings attached to it. Assembly Committee on Local Governments fast-tracked the bill, didn't make any amendments to it, but we do know last-minute changes are coming on Wednesday. But the big question remains is the Senate on board? Where does the governor stand? And what are these changes going to look like? So
some things we know they've talked about changing, right? So you have to have a maintenance of effort, they call it, with law enforcement. You have to maintain what you're doing with them. There are 4 ways to meet it. You can pick any 2 to meet that requirement. 2 of the options are citations issued or arrests for local ordinance violations. Lawmakers talked about, okay, that maybe not be what we wanted to do, or might tweak that a little bit. There's that kind of stuff. But big changes, I mean, Republicans negotiated this bill. Like, I don't get the impression the Assembly Republicans want to change a whole lot. They like the bill. The questions are, A, do you have to add stuff in to get Senate Republicans on board? Because from my calls, they didn't have the votes as of late last week to pass this thing. And two, how do you get then Evers on board? Because that's a whole other hurdle, right? Evers called for a clean bill, no referendum on the sales taxes, Milwaukee County and City. That's not going to happen. But could you get a bill with these Milwaukee strings and no referendum? Like, that's the trade-off. That's what I don't know. Like, where is that sweet spot for Tony Evers that he could sign a bill that, if you notice, local officials from Milwaukee are not complaining about school resource officers or 2/3 votes to raise spending. They're complaining about the referendum because they know if that fails, they don't have a good option financially to keep the city and county afloat.
All right. Well, we'll stay tuned on that. Thanks so much for joining us.
And it's that.